So did the dwarves drown in the river? Hello there, welcome back to the channel. It's Richie here from Dawi After Dark. How are you all? In this video today, I will be talking about how the dwarves got on at the Riverlands event at the Squarebase GT at the TSN in Nottingham, England. This weekend was a really fun event. I enjoyed it so much. There was a lot of really stunning armies there as well, which I will share some pictures with you. But this event was a little bit different to some of the normal ones. It had a slight comp, and by comp, I mean there were scenario rules. For this, the Riverlands event, there were rivers that were running down the center of the maps. Now, this is a very interesting and different way to play the game. The rivers were classed as magical. You couldn't fly over them. They turned off Swift Stride, and also they granted cover for the other side of the board. So for this tournament, I couldn't really take my gyrocopters, unfortunately. I've obviously been playing with them a lot recently, and I've been really enjoying them, but I couldn't take them, as granting cover to everything on the other side of the board and the fact I couldn't fly across means that I would just be sitting the other side, hitting on either 6s or 7s if they were hiding on the other side of terrain, and it just didn't really sound like a good time. So I decided to take my Royal Clans list. I did make some adjustments. I will be putting the list down in the comments down below. I won't be talking about my list too much because there weren't really that many changes. The only real changes that I made were I dropped the great weapons off my Longbeard, so they just had hand weapon shield. This is to try and make full use of shield wall. I always get too overconfident with them when they charge in, or if they make a follow-up move and they've got their great weapons. Having strength 7 and AP 2 or potentially AP 5 is amazing, but they cannot take a hit when they get hit back. I wanted to make the most of shield wall so that I can try and keep the king and the characters alive for longer and not get too greedy, because that is mainly my problem. The other changes that I made were my Iron Drakes. I dropped them down from a big unit to 3 units of 5, with the Iron Warden having the Trollhammer Torpedo and the Cinderblast Bombs. But then a nice little change that I've added is drop my artillery, and I've added in a Doomseeker. So this Doomseeker has got 2 runes of speed, Rune of Alric the Mad, and the extra attack tattoo rune, which makes him pretty quick, pretty gnarly, and can do a lot of damage. Unfortunately, he is only slow, but really fun for a nice bit of backfield defense. For the Riverlands, the rivers had different effects for each battle round. So in round 1, the rules are the Boiling Flood. Any model, at least partially in the Boiling Flood, at the end of any turn suffers a strength 4 hit with no armor saves allowed. Round 2, the rules are it's a Necrotic Ooze. A unit that moves through the Necrotic Ooze gains the Poison Attack special rule until the end of the following player turn. So vile are the waters that they cling to the blade. The round 3 rules are Raging Torrent. The invigorating effects of the icy waters. Any models that are in the river or left the river earlier that turn have a 3-up initiative, which was very handy with the dwarves because then I managed to get a lot speedier. Round 4, the River of Blood. A unit that moves or charges through the River of Blood is counted as causing fear, and if they already cause fear, they now cause terror until the end of the following player turn. So ghastly is the blood-slicked appearance. Round 5, the River of Light. When the unit enters the River of Light, it gains a 6-up ward save for the rest of the turn. This changed how a lot of people were going to play the game. You couldn't just use your normal tactics, you couldn't just use your normal armies. It did change how everyone played and how all the different armies performed as well. There were so many cannons at this event. They didn't get affected by cover and people would have to slog through the rivers. So the cannons on the other side of the board were going to do a lot more damage than normal. And also dragons wouldn't be able to fly over the river because of the magical torrent effects of the steam apparently. So they would have to trudge across them, meaning that artillery and gun lines were a lot more common at this event than in normal ones. I unfortunately didn't win this event. As you will see in game 3, I got smashed back down with my one loss of the weekend against Tom Carley's Beastmen. He was running a very interesting list which had 4 Viletide users, and I just got so preoccupied in the deployment phase about trying to block out these ambushing Viletide wizards that were going to be coming behind me that I just completely forgot that Viletide isn't actually that good into the dwarves. I got so scared of it, and I shouldn't have, and I split my line up too much, and Tom smashed me. Now I did manage to win a cheeky little painting award, which was for my white dwarf that is printed from White Angel Miniatures. So if you like this sculpt, please go and check it out. It was an absolute blast to paint, and I'm really grateful to be able to win one award at least. I did end up coming 5th at this event. It was a really fun one, but unfortunately I just didn't score high enough to get a better position. Had some great opponents and had some nail-biting games. Some of them were very, very close, and the quality of player that I played into was very high. So it was just a great tournament. For game one, I played into Jack Cropper's Ogres. Now, I know a lot of you at home are going to be sat there thinking that Ogres aren't very good and they are a bit of a laughing stock at the moment. That is only true of people that don't play them too much. Jack is an amazing player with the Ogres, and he consistently gets 4-1 at tournaments. He is really pushing the boundaries of the Ogres in the UK, and I know there are people abroad in America and Canada that are also doing really well with them. They should require a lot more finesse to be able to get the good scores with them, but it can be done. They are really, really good into some of the undead builds and are actually quite scary when they hit into you. They do struggle into dragons though, which we do see quite a lot of them on the tabletop. So if the amount of dragons do go down, then we will see more ogres. So in Jack Cropper's list, he has a tyrant in his general with light armor, on foot, ogre blade, armor of meteoric iron, and the beast killer special name. Then he has a Slaughtermaster level 4 wizard with lore familiar, 2x power scroll, dispel scroll, death cheater, and battle magic. A bruiser with great weapon, light armor, battle standard bearer with the rune of Moor. He's on foot with the armor of silvered steel and death cheater name. In core, he has 3 ogre balls that he needs to take with light armor, then 10 iron guts with great weapons, heavy armor, veteran, gut lord, standard bearer with cannibal totem, and a bellower. Then he has 3 units of saber tusks, with one of them upgraded to be scouts. These are really nice directors. And then he's trying out for the first time ever 2 units of 10 Noblar trappers with the throwing weapons and the snarl finger. These were quite interesting when I played against them. I think against some armies these actually could be quite clutch. Then in special he has 2 iron blasters, which are pretty disgusting. A 360 cannon on top of a chariot can be amazing. Unfortunately, when I played into him, his dice rolls were horrendous and he rolled so many misfires, and I think that carried on all weekend for Jack. For some reason, mine and Jack's dice over the entire weekend just weren't good. This was an amazing game, so fun, and I was surprised that he actually came at me. Because he had the ranged advantage, I was really, really shocked that he tried to come in and get the anvil, but he did say to me that because he couldn't kill the anvil in the last game, he had a grudge against me, so he was definitely going to try and kill it in this one. So I've just arrived at the TSN ready for the Rivers event. We are playing downstairs and I am going to be playing into Jack Cropper again. This is going to be round 1, so it's going to be interesting. It is an open battle, so let's see how we can do. Playing into ogres, see if we can kill him in the river. So we have set up the armies. I've gone for 2 units of Iron Drakes over here, covering my anvil and the cart, hiding behind this bit of terrain here. There is a big unit of Iron Drakes. My Doomseeker, which is being proxied by the White Dwarf, is currently moved forward after Vanguard move, and the Iron Drakes over here. He has responded with a unit of cats over here, a cannon over on this side, which is going to try and get some arcing fire across my units or into the anvil. Some more cats there, coming into a unit of the bulls here, which are hiding behind this wood, and then some units have ambushed forwards of the grots. And then the big meat of his army is over here with the tyrant and the spellcaster and another cannon. Luckily, I have managed to get the first turn, so let's see if I can kill that cannon before it can do a lot of wounds to me. Right, let's have a good game, buddy. So at the end of my turn 1, I've just got Rune of Open Steel onto the big block here. I didn't move that forward because I didn't want to give away the flanks to the cannons, but I have pushed the Iron Drakes and the Doomseeker up. These Iron Drakes over here shot up. I managed to do 2 wounds over to this Iron Blaster over here, but then over here, these Iron Drakes failed to hit these little goblins because of the cover that the river is giving. In this event, the river is unfortunately magical. That's the reason why I didn't want to get the Doomseeker any closer as well, because it also turns off my kind of mini Swift Stride. So going into the Ogres, turn 1. So at the end of Jack's first turn, he's managed to get these across the river here and managed to kill 2 Iron Drakes over here and 1 Iron Drake over here. He did misfire on both of the cannons, so is going into my next turn. Let's see what I can kill going forward. So at the end of my turn over here, he did challenge out my Doomseeker that charged into them, so he only fell back in good order on a really lucky roll by Jack. So I've kind of positioned around, so basically trying to make charges quite difficult over here. I failed to get off my move again, so I couldn't do some real shenanigans over here. But next turn, I'm going to try and get those shenanigans going. He can't do any sneaky charges over this side with them, so they're blocking his charges with the Ogres for this turn, so I don't have to worry about them so much yet. So let's go in there and see how he does. So at the end of his turn, the Ogres are right up in my grill. These skirmishers, the Iron Drakes, did manage to beat in combat. And then over here, the Doomseeker managed to clear his way through here, overrunning. So he's got a nice couple of charges he could do next turn. There's some blockers in front of me, so I might have to charge into some of these, unfortunately. But he has lost one of his Iron Blasters. There's one over here that can still get some flank shots, but the other one is dead. He rolled a 1. Can the Dwarves get in, or can he get into my anvil and get some good points? So at the end of my turn, the Doomseeker has run in and killed his unit champion. I did manage to win combat, but unfortunately he rolled low enough to only give ground, and he's stuck there, so he's not moving. Over here, I've managed to kill his dogs, but there are some more dogs over here. This cannon is still a massive threat, so let's see if he can do some wounds with that and potentially kill my anvil. So we're going into his turn 3. He is stuck here, so the Dwarves might be able to get in and get a flank in the next turn. The end of that turn, unfortunately he managed to kill my Doomseeker with his Tyrant. I rolled really bad and didn't do a single wound to him. He has blocked me over here, so I'm going to be charging into one of these and try and shoot the other one off, so then with an overrun I can clip into the flank of these Ogres over here and then stop him right in his paces. He's coming around here to try and kill the anvil, so if I can stop him from doing that and get the points, then basically it's a win for me. If he can get the anvil and I can't get that big block, then it's a win for him. So let's see how it goes. So at the end of that really eventful turn, he's managed to kill that unit of Iron Drakes over here. He has run off the board, but he's just put him there so he knows where he's coming back on. But the biggest thing, and it could be a big swing, is that anvil got killed by this cannon over here. So unfortunately, I didn't pass my ward save, and he managed to bang me out. So let's go in, and it's going to be quite an uneventful turn. I'm just going to probably do some combat over here, and then try to pen these Ogres coming in, and potentially try to push them off the board next turn. At the end of my turn, I didn't really do much. I walked up here in marching column to try and pen him in when he comes in. He's going to have to probably engage with me next turn. He can't charge me, but I'm probably going to be able to charge him. Over here, I managed to win combat with the Iron Drakes, which was quite surprising in combat, but we are going into his turn, so he's going to charge me again, and this cannon is free to fire and probably up my arse into this big, long conga of Dwarves. So at the end of his turn, he just walked back on the board. I've penned him in, and I'm going to charge him in a minute. Let's see if we can try and get some points in turn 6. So we have just finished our first game here at the TSN in Riverlands. How did it go, mate?
It was good. I'd like to say competitive, but it wasn't so competitive. I had a grudge on the anvil from our last game, so that was my one purpose of this game, to get that anvil down.
So in the last game we played, if you watched that video, he just couldn't kill the anvil. This game, he did manage to kill it, but I did manage to lock him in combat and push his unit off the board. So they did unfortunately end up dying, which kind of clinched me quite a big win. It was very close until, I would say, turn 5, turn 6. Really good game, mate. Was there any standout bits for you?
Your Doomseeker beating the big block in combat. I really enjoyed trying the Noble Trappers. So they're the new addition to the list, and they just added a little bit something different than Saber-Tusk. So enjoyed them. They killed a few Iron Drakes, so I was happy with that. They got the points.
Yeah, for sure, man. It was a really good game. Thank you very much, mate.
No worries.
Cheers, mate. That was a great game against Jack. He tried so hard to try and outposition me to stop my big unit from getting towards his, and then trying to rush into my anvil. So we spent about 3 turns trying to outposition each other. I was trying to create little lanes of redirecting Iron Drakes so that if he charged into them, he would be off the board, then have to come back on, then I could charge into him in the next turn. And then he was trying to do exactly the same thing with the Saber-Tusks. Unfortunately for Jack, he didn't roll very well with his cannons, and I managed to beat him in the end. And also because he was so close to the edge of the board trying to get my anvil, when my unit got into him, I managed to push him off the board. He did unfortunately roll an 11 for his flea after I'd killed his BSB, so there's no rerolls and he was off the board, which meant quite a big win for the Dawi. This was a 19-1 victory for the Dwarves, although it was a lot closer on the tabletop. It was a really fun game, and Jack is always a great opponent. My next game was into Nathan Parry's Dwarves. Now, Nathan is playing Grand Army, and he hasn't actually played too many games with the Dwarves. I was running him through the tactics of what to do while we were playing the game. I didn't want there to be any gotcha moments. We were talking through everything, and I was telling him what I was going to do ahead of time and also how he would play into it. I was explaining to him what my units were going to do and how he could play into it best. So we were basically going to be fighting over the river, because this mission was played into the Battle of the Pass scenario with the river in the center. I did have the Rune of Passage in my list, so I had the speed advantage. So it was whoever gets to the river first gains the poison was probably more likely to win this game. In his list, he has the Anvil of Doom, but unfortunately naked, so I could kill it. The king with great weapons, shield bearers, master rune of Gromril, the master rune of smiting. Because his grand army, he couldn't afford the preservation. He had a Thane BSB with the rune of Grungni and the rune of battle with great weapons and shield bearers. Then he has a Fireball Thane, and then in core 20 Longbeards with great weapons, shield, elder, standard bearer, rune of battle, rune of courage, and a musician with the drilled upgrade. Then he has 15 rangers with great weapons, upgraded to have an old Deadeye, a standard bearer, and a musician. Then he has 2 cannons, a dwarf cart, and then 2 units of 5 Iron Drakes, which were exactly the same as mine, with the Iron Warden, with the Cinder Blast bombs, and the Trollhammer torpedo. This was a fun game. All of the games that I play against the Dwarves are usually really, really close. Unfortunately, he hadn't taken some of the items that really would hamper my list. Rune of Preservation not on the King, and Reason Preservation not on the Anvil or Toughness 10, meant that as soon as my block hit them, and I did manage to have the poison, I managed to smash through, kill quite a lot of them, double outnumber, run over them on the flea, and then crash into the Anvil. It was a great game. Hopefully he will carry on playing the Dwarves. Hopefully he will carry on playing the Dwarves. Having poison from the river did actually make a massive difference in this game, because I think it would have been a lot more grindy if I didn't have that. So it was a very interesting little change for the comp mission. So unfortunately in game 2, it is a civil war against Dwarves. It's always a bad day when we fight against our Dawi kin, but this should be a good game. It is a battle for the pass across the river, so we're basically just going to run at each other and he's going to try and cannon me. So can the Royal Clans defeat the Grand Army, or can the Grand Army defeat the Royal Clans? Of my turn, I have rushed up into here. In his turn, he shot into my big unit of Longbeards and managed to do a couple of wounds with his cannons over here. I did manage to save a couple of my saves though. So I've run up into the river, I've taken all the DTs, I haven't lost any models that way, so that was always good. He has come with the scouts over here to try and charge up here. I've tried to bait him to come into my flank, and also the riverbank here is classed as a low linear obstacle, so if he charges into me into the river, then unfortunately won't get any ranks as it is disrupted. But it's interesting, we'll see how this goes. It's never a good day to play against Dawi. So at the end of that turn, I managed to charge in and kill the big brick of Dwarves. My king didn't manage to D6 wound him, I only did 2 wounds in that, but I just managed to win, just mainly on combat res and the fact that Doomseeker killed absolutely loads of Dwarves on his way in. So can he try and pull it back and try and kill this big blob here with the cannons and the anvil? Potentially turning the Iron Drakes around and levering into them as well? Or is he going to try and charge in over here? So at the end of my turn, my block smashed through, killed the anvil. Over here, there is a fight going on between the 2 carts. The anvil managed to win combat against this ranger, who is now lone. He is chilling. Unfortunately, he only fell back in good order, so he is still there. So over here, this is a slight problem, because between the Gunthane and these 2 units of Iron Drakes, he can start taking my backline points. But I'm going to try and run up into him. The cannons, unfortunately, I'm probably going to leave alone this game, as I just can't get to them. The Battle of the Ages continues when the pony carts cannot kill each other. I managed to kill his ranger over here, and I've just walked up towards these Iron Drakes, so I can imagine that they are going to reform and shoot the living crap out of me in a second. The cannons did manage to kill my Iron Drake over here, so he has managed to claim some points, but is looking quite good for the Royal Clans at the moment in time. That was a pretty Pyrrhic victory to me in that one. I managed to get a 20-0. We still had a great game though. Now my third game of the weekend, this is when shit got real. I played into Tom Carley's Beastmen. So this is a list of his that I haven't played into before. It's the Quad Valetide Wizards. I have played into Quad before, but I haven't played into them when 2 of them have been ambushing. Now this really changed up how I thought in my head that I wanted to deploy against it. I kind of got in my own head a little bit in the deployment, trying to like zone out lots of areas, as you'll see in the deployment in a minute. But unfortunately, I shouldn't have cared about them too much, because it wasn't that killed me, it was just everything else slamming into me and my ability to not be able to roll 5s or even 6s at all. And he absolutely just smashed into me. In this game, I only filmed up to, I think, about turn 2, because we were so embroiled in the game that I actually ended up forgetting to film, unfortunately. But you will kind of get the gist. From turn 2, not much else happened apart from I managed to kill a lot of his straggling units. So I managed to kill a lot of his straggling units and all of the chariots, but everything else, when it was ploughed into me, did manage to whittle down the king. I just couldn't dispel Plague of Rust, even though I potentially had the advantage because I have my magic res too. I just couldn't stop it, and it was just an absolute nightmare. And I got whittled down just to the king surviving by himself, but then he ended up fleeing from combat by himself and getting run down by a chariot, which was an absolute nightmare. But in Tom's list, he has a level 2 Bray Shaman with Dark Magic, Power Scroll, Ruby Ring of Ruin in ambush, a Bray Shaman level 2 with Dark Magic, Power Scroll in ambush, a level 4 with Elementalism, Power Scroll, Hag Tree Fetish and a Flying Carpet, a Great Bray Shaman, which is his general, which is a level 4 wizard, Elementalism, 2 times Power Scroll with the Wand of Jet, 6 Chaos Warhounds, 9 Goreherd with Shields, True Horn, Great Weapon and Musician, 9 Goreherd, exactly the same. Then he has 4 Razorgord Herd, 2 Tuskor Chariots, Dragon Ogre Shartak with a Great Weapon and Heavy Armor. Then he has 2 Dragon Ogre Shartaks with Great Weapons and Heavy Armor. Then a Dragon Ogre Shagoth with Talisman of Protection and Slug Skin, and a gigantic spawn of Nurgle. This was a very fun list to play into. I do feel that if I had deployed better, I would have been able to give him a little bit more of a game. We did go until turn 6, but then I ended up getting pretty much tabled. So next time when we play into him, I will have a better tactics going into this. If you haven't played into this kind of list before, it's a little bit daunting with those popping up behind you, because I genuinely thought that he would have just been able to pop some of my units from behind. I was quite scared playing into this, because if he popped up behind me and then got a really good roll in his Viletide, he could potentially just start smashing units. But I should have been more scared of the mass of drops coming at me. And that's a real strength in his list, because it's so many drops, it's 14 drops, so he knows exactly where you're going to be. So then he can position around you to be in the best position to try and outplay you. It was a really fun game. It's always nice to play against Tom anyway, and it was nice to see Tom doing well with the Beast. The +3 initiative from the river only come up slightly in that game because it meant that I was initiative 5 with my dwarves that were in the river. But I couldn't roll to hit and I couldn't roll to wound, so it didn't do anything for me. The dice absolutely abandoned me in this game, and I just couldn't hit or kill anything. My king was locked in combat with a chariot for basically 3 rounds of combat, D6 damage on the smiting, and I still couldn't kill it. So many whiffs in this game. So game 3 is going to be me playing into Tom Carley. Looking forward to it, mate?
Yeah, man. Battle for the captaincy, innit? If I win, I run it. That's how it works.
Definitely, mate. Yeah. Should be a good one. So he's got quad Viletide, so this is going to be pretty naughty. It's whoever pokes their head up first is probably going to get shot back down. So I think it's probably going to be a really cagey game. There's either going to be a really big swing or it's going to be a draw.
How many Dispel Scrolls you got?
3.
4's bigger than 3, isn't it?
Well, we'll see how it goes. So turn 1, I kind of deployment phase because we got excited to play the game, but basically I've kind of deployed in the center here, and he has moved up with the big block up here to come in and try and kill me. I actually run into the river with my Doomseeker over here, and unfortunately I lost a wound, but I'm super high initiative if I do manage to charge out of it. So he's going to try and cast loads of magic and Viletide me and stuff, so this is going to be quite gnarly if he manages to get these off. At the end of my turn, I did some jank charging in here to try and save myself from the Viletides. Unfortunately, I didn't actually do any wounds to the spawn because Tom just decided to roll a million 5s. But it was that was pretty scary actually, to be fair. So it's going to be interesting to see what goes over here. So this over here, when he charges in, hopefully be able to kill them. These wizards over here are becoming a little bit of a nuisance. Ignore all of the clutter. So over here did manage to kill the Dragon Ogre. So there is a lot of stuff running around. Be interesting to see what Tom does in his next turn. So going into Tom's turn, he has absolutely obliterated a load of the block over here. I've been rolling absolutely horrendously, but he has been rolling absolutely amazing. Jammy prick. But nah, it's been a really good game so far. This is an absolutely crazy fight. The Shagoth's on 1 wound left. This is just going absolutely crazy. Right, so let's see if he can kill the dwarf block. And I got absolutely smashed.
Richie's dice abandoned him, bless him. He played the game really, really well. But also, I prayed to the right God this morning as well, because my lord, mate, those dice, my lord.
So basically, I couldn't roll above a 2. He rolled 5s for days. Yeah. It was a really, to be fair, it was quite a good matchup for me. Just the dice kind of went away. We both probably played it as well as we could have, I think. Really dicey game. Went really well. I kind of forgot to film after about, I think it was turn 3, just because it got like tremendously dicey. But to be honest, not much happened apart from there was that mega combat in the middle, and then I just ended up getting whittled down. I just couldn't wound anything. The king was in combat with a chariot for 3 rounds of combat, and I didn't kill it until the final one. That was pretty rough. There was one turn when basically his entire army was into my unit, and I was like, right, I've got you now. But then I just didn't wound anything for that entire round. So kind of blew my chance to pull the game back round. So that, if that had gone off, that would have been a really big win for me. But we said at the beginning it was either going to be a draw or horrendously swingy, and that's how it went, man.
Yeah, I think if we were to play this, say, in a teams level, neither of us would have engaged as far as we would have.
No.
We would have played it way more protective, and we had the conversation about it beforehand, and we just went, should we find out what happens when we actually run at each other? And we did, and we found out.
Yeah, for sure. Really good game. Cheers, mate.
Love it.
That was unfortunately an 18-2 loss for the Dwarves, so I've managed to win 2 and lose 1 on the first day. Going into day 2, I played against Paul Lowe with his Wolves of the Sea. Paul Lowe is a great guy, and we have played before. When we played before, he did a full send into me, and I did unfortunately manage to kill most of his army. So he wanted to try a slightly different tactic in this game. I was questioning whether he was going to point to a draw, but he wanted to try and pull me out of my castle, which I feel is quite a valid tactic against the Dwarves. Get me out of the move again range, get me out of open steel range, and then you can have a lot more fun playing into the big dwarf brick. But unfortunately, as I moved up to the river, I started to do a little bit of damage with my troll hammers, so he needed to push in. Paul is a great guy, and it was such a fun game. Paul's list is a Sorcerer Lord with Mark of Chaos Undivided, level 4 Wizard, Demonic Mount, Infernal Puppet, Spell Familiar, 2 Favor of the Gods, Brazen Collar, and Battle Magic. Then he has an Exalted Champion with Heavy Armor, Shield, Mark of Chaos, Nurgle, Demonic Mount, Ogre Blade, 2-time Favor of the Gods, Enchanting Aura. Then in core he has 6 units of 5 Marauder Berserkers. Now these are going to be popping up behind me to do some damage. Then he has 2 units of 6 Warhounds with Vanguard, which are going to be in little darts. And then a massive unit of Skinwolves with a Skinwolf Jarl, which is the champion. Now, if anyone hasn't played against the Skinwolves, they can be quite deadly if you get them protracted into combat, so it's definitely worth trying to kill them straight away, which I didn't do, as you'll see. Then he has 2 Gigantic Spawns and 3 Dragon Ogres with a Shartak. So game 1 of the second day, we are playing lengthways on the board. It's Battle for the Pass, but with a stream in the middle which turns fear into terror and basically gives units fear if they don't have it when they pass. I have turtled up on this side of the board with my Iron Drakes, creating a wall in front of my Longbeards, with my Anvil holding the flank, a Doomseeker holding this. A Doomseeker over here holding the hill by himself, basically because Paul has a lot of ambushes, so he's there to try and stop him from coming in behind me, and then a cart right at the back to stop him from coming behind me on this side. On the other side of the board, we have the Dragon Ogres with his Cav over here, with the Spawn and the Skin Wolves with the Wizards behind, and his Lord over here. And then we've got the Dogs covering this flank, so he's not pushing forward. I have got the first turn, and we're both being cagey with each other, so let's see how the first turn goes. The end of turn 1, we've both been very hesitant because we don't want to move into each other. He's played against me before and doesn't want to come forward and engage, so he hasn't moved or cast any spells. I only put the reroll saves onto this unit of Iron Drakes at the front, and I did push forward a little bit. So my next turn, I might push forward and we'll see where his ambushes come on. So super quick turn 2 as well. I've moved forward. I managed to get 1 shot into these Dragon Ogres over here. Managed to move twice with the Anvil, but unfortunately I didn't do any wounds. He has decided to move forward now. He's dropped a Pillar of Fire. It is only the smaller template inside that one, so don't worry. So we are going to start tussling really, really soon. At the end of turn 2, the battle lines have moved up into each other. The spawns have walked up. The Dragon Ogres have 1 less and are now wounded. He has moved up here, but he is in charge range of the Doomseeker on top of the hill. There has been some units ambushed behind my Anvil. Is this a lone mission to try and destroy the Death Star? And then over here, stuff is now in range of all of my shooting, so let's see what the Dwarves can do going into my next turn. Dragon Ogre fled and ran over this way 6. I decided to not chase anyone because he only give ground with the spawn because it's unbreakable. So I'm going to try and get +1 save, reroll saves onto this unit in the next turn. Over here, the Iron Drakes are going to be shooting over into the big unit over there. These Iron Drakes over here are probably going to turn around and try and kill some of these ambush units over here. Over here, the Doomseeker managed to get charging, killed that unit, and then is probably going to be charging into this fleeing Droger in the next turn. So at the end of that tumultuous turn, I managed to get the spawn down to 3 wounds. He failed his Arcane Urgency to move this unit over here. I did manage to stop it on an 11, and then he is kind of stuck there. So going into my next turn, if I can kill this spawn, I do get a flank charge into his big unit of Skinwolves with the heroes in, which are obviously putting their warp form onto the unit. Over here, the Iron Drakes are still shooting down into these. Did manage to clear out all of these Berserkers over here, but there is another unit that's going to be running into charge soon. The Doomseeker over here caused a massive flee into the Dragon Ogre, which fled all the way through here, and then it just basically just died over that side of the board. I managed to get some Iron Drakes into it at the beginning of my last turn. So it's going to be a very interesting turn 5. So at the end of that turn, I managed to overrun and slam into the flank of this unit here. Unfortunately, I didn't do that much damage to them. I actually took more wounds than they did to me. The dwarves not having the reroll saves because I was in a combat before, so I couldn't cast it, unfortunately. And I don't want him to be able to flee, so I did follow up straight into him. But now I'm in a big line to see if I can put the hurt onto that unit. So we have the Iron Drakes over here. The Marauders, the Berserkers, sorry, over here got killed, but there is still 2 units, so I'm going to have to turn around and shoot into them now. Can the War of the Death Stars be won by the Skinwolves or the Dwarves? So at the end of game 4, we played the Battle for the Pass, which was the Battle for the River, basically, and the Dawi managed to come out on top against the Skinwolves. He tried a really nice tactic to pull me away from my reroll saves, but potentially a little bit too cagey. How did you find the game?
Yeah, it was really good. I mean, like you said, I was pretty cagey at the beginning. It didn't really work out. It was really fun, your rolls.
Yeah, so basically, yeah. So my rolls were as bad as my game against Tom. I had 18 attacks going into 1 wizard and didn't do a single wound to it. So it's kind of the story of this tournament for me. I just haven't rolled well at all. It was a really good game though, thanks mate. So it did end up a 15-5 to the Dwarves, so the Dawi are starting to pull it back. But let's see what the Skinwolves can play into next. Hopefully you get a good game next, mate. Cheers, mate. So in this game, I managed to get most of Paul's units. I managed to fight through, kill basically everything apart from the blob of Skinwolves and the characters. I had my entire unit in close combat with those Skinwolves for 2 turns, and I just couldn't roll anything. So I had 18 attacks just into the wizard, and I couldn't even do 1 wound. My dice have definitely betrayed me this weekend. The dwarves just obviously didn't want to kill that unit. I did manage to get a 15-5 though, so which was a decent score for the dwarves going into this matchup because the Skinwolves can be quite strong. In the final game, I played into Owen Davies' Empire. Now, he has been playing the Empire for a long time. He is getting to be quite good with them, and he's playing a type of list that the dwarves don't play into very well. He has the static artillery, but then he also has some really fast mobile units that can just come and pick off all of our chaff units. When you're playing against the Empire, when you're playing against an Empire list like this, you unfortunately have to hide some of your most valuable targets. And I was playing a bit of a cat and mouse tactic with him, where we would put, I was playing a little bit of a cat and mouse tactic with him in deployment to try and force him to put down his cannons so that I could know exactly where they were before I put the anvil down. And I gave him 1 shot with 1 of the cannons into my anvil, so at least he wasn't shooting with all 3 of them into them. And my anvil also wasn't hidden on the other side of the board, because if I'd have been on the opposite side of the board than the cannons, there's no way that I could have yeeted into them and got some points. This was a nail biter of a game. It was very tense. He was just running away from me the entire game, and we were trying to pick up little points where we could go. What I haven't mentioned before is the river, if you claim it at the end of the game, is worth an additional 200 victory points. It was very important that we got points from each other and also went back and claimed the river. This was an absolute nail biter of a game, and here is his list. Great weapon, full plate armor, shield, general, Imperial Griffin with the white cloak, Captain of the Empire with great weapon, full plate armor, shield, griffin, talisman of protection, level 4 wizard on Pegasus, Tome of Midnight, Wizard's Familiar and Dark Magic, and an Empire Engineer, and then also another Empire Engineer with hand weapon on foot to keep the points down. He has 12 Empire Knights of the White Wolf with great weapons, shields, drilled, stubborn, a champion, the Witch Hunter's Ward, and a standard bearer with the Icon of Moor. He then has 12 state troops with halberds and light armor, 5 Empire Archers with warbows, and then the Great Cannons. And then in rare, he has the Steam Tank. This is quite a difficult list for my list to play into. Because of the 3-up ward, I just can't kill that Griffin. I did manage to do quite a few wounds to it though, which meant he then had to hide it because I could have popped it if he come closer to me in the final turns. That he played it very, very well. He didn't engage with me, and he did a couple of feints to stop me from getting closer to him. I did manage to get onto the river though, so we drew on the points, and it come down to right at the end, the Doomseeker dying, which meant it was a draw. It did come down to the Doomseeker dying, which meant that was a draw. Very, very dicey game. He played that amazingly. For the final round of this tournament, I am playing into Empire. So there's a lot of artillery. I could have gone for the really safe route of hiding my anvil behind here, but I wanted to try and push up into these cannons. He is going to get one cannon into my anvil over here. Hopefully he doesn't pop it in one go. I wanted to go for the risky one. I can't win the event now, so I'm basically just trying to go for a big win to potentially try and get second or third. So this Empire over here, he's got some cannons with engineer and then some units studded through them to create cover. Then he's got 2 battle chickens and then a wizard on Pegasus, followed up by a steam tank over here, and then there is a unit of Knights of the White Wolf. The river, this game is giving a sits-up ward, which doesn't really make any difference to either of us. So let's see how it goes into turn 1. The end of turn 1, Bill is still alive. The cannon failed to wound it. The Doomseeker kind of stumbled in the river here. My big unit here has pushed on forward, managed to get the yeet up the board right in front of the cannons. So are the cannons going to try and blast it to keep themselves alive, or are they going to shoot into the anvil still? Over here, the Griffin has come round to try and kill these units of Iron Drakes, which were basically put there to make him come over here. Unfortunately for him, he did fail his 3-up ward, so I did manage to do 3 wounds with 1 Triatma torpedo, which is actually the most that any of them have done all weekend, so that's pretty crazy using with a 3-up ward, which is pretty nuts, right? Like, going into turn 2. So at the end of that turn, the Griffin is up here. He's only got 3 wounds left and he's staring down the barrel of some Iron Drakes. Unfortunately, he does have the 3-up ward against them, so can they deal with him? Probably not. Over here, I've managed to deal with a lot of the cannons. There is still some around here, but the Doomseeker is going to be running in to save the day over there. Then I've got the Iron Drakes over here kind of protecting it to try and do some wounds into the stank. Everything else on his side has run away. So basically we've been playing a game of cat and mouse the entire game with him trying to get little points. He is coming in to try and do a multi-charge into the Dwarves. He has forgoed trying to run away and outmaneuver each other to try and multi-charge me to try and do as much damage as possible to me. This is going to be really, really interesting. Decided he wasn't actually going to charge into me and be the cowardly Empire player that he is. So he's going to run away and try and claim the objective. My Doomseeker over here failed his charge, unfortunately, so that's slightly annoying. And he's now moved 9 inches away, which means I'm going to have to roll a 6 on my dice to be able to charge him. This over here, the Iron Drake died, which was going to happen against the Griffin, but he's still only got a couple of wounds left, so hopefully I'll be able to kill him going into the next. We have just finished the final game at the TSN Riverlands event, so it was the Dwarves versus the Empire, and it ended up in a draw. How did the game go, mate?
Oh, it was pretty intense. It was pretty tactical. I was sort of dipping in and out of being able to get points. It's good fun to play Richie. Really proud of getting a draw. Could have got a win if I'd have fled, so I kicked myself there. But overall, great game, great tournament. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no, it's been awesome. So it was a really fun one. He basically played exactly how he should have. He give up the points to the cannons and then run away with everything else. With the Dwarves, it's really hard to catch them, and you need to hide the anvil against the cannons. So you basically are stuck in either one corner unless there's a castle or something in the middle of the board. So it's quite hard to try and get the points back off them with a combat list. So for me, kind of playing for a draw is probably the best I can kind of do against this kind of list. But I almost threw that away with the Doomseeker surviving so long. It was the last roll of turn 6 and then he killed the Doomseeker. So unfortunately that cost him the win. Cheers for the game, mate.
No worries, thank you very much.
I had a great time this weekend, and with the river missions, it was a really fun way to play. It did definitely change up a lot of the armies, and it was very interesting to see how people played around the rivers in different scenarios. Unfortunately, they did hamper Dwarves quite a lot, but I ended up with 5th, so I was pretty happy about that. I also want to say thank you so much to all of my viewers and all of my channel members. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. It really means a great deal, and I will see you on the next one. Rock and stone.